there are tons of options for sharpeners. You've got stones, you've got grinders, you've got guided systems, ceramics, diamonds, carbides. You've got all sorts of options, and it can get really daunting. And so the one thing that I would recommend to people is try a couple of different ways, see what works for you, and do that. There are some really easy ways to sharpen a knife. For example, WorkSharp makes a small tabletop grinder, and it's got guides that give you the right angle every time. All you do is just pull it through a few times, your knife is sharp. If you can afford one of those, if you have enough knives that's useful to you, that's worth it, by all means, get one of those and just forget about ever having to worry about sharpening your knives again. For those of you that prefer using a stone, great, use a stone. Some people find that it's serene almost, that they just enjoy sitting down, putting their steel to the stone and just pushing their edge back to what it was. And for some people, that's kind of a release. If that's you, great. If it's not you, then find another way. That's what I want to say about this. There's a lot of contention about knife sharpening because people think that the way that works for them is the way and the only way, and I don't see it that way. For me, my way is I bring my knives to work here. We've got a belt grinder and a leather wheel, and so I just do mine here. My knives are sharpened in a minute. But again, some people, they just prefer another way, and that's totally fine. We've got a few different options here so you can kind of see some of the options that are out there. A couple of them are meant to be field sharpeners. This one fits in a little pouch. You've got a really rough edge, and you've got a somewhat fine, kind of medium to fine grit, I would say. If you never let your knife get dull, you never need to do a full sharpening on it. Some people, they just don't have that option. They use their knives and they use them so much that they get dull before they ever get a chance to touch up their edge. So if you're one of those guys that your knife is dull, you got to start with a coarse grit, whether it's a stone, whether it's a diamond sharpener, whether it's a carbide, whatever it is that you start with. You want to start coarse, move to medium, move to fine, and then if you want or need to, move to a strop to finish your edge. So basically, and again, there's so many different ways to sharpen a knife that I'm going to show you a couple that I've seen and or done myself. With most stones like this, you'll want to get some honing oil on it. For example, so again, there's so many different ways to sharpen a knife. My grandfather used to sharpen his knives with a circular motion, and he could keep the same angle all the way across his blade edge with that motion. I've tried to do it. I've tried several times, and I just can't do it. I get just weird angles, and it does not work for me. For him, it worked. Most people on a stone such as this, and I'm going to add some more oil. Most people on a stone such as this, they will go blade towards the stone, and then when they strop, they'll come back. So they're always pushing against the edge. One of the close friends of Top's here skins a lot of animals, processes game for a lot of people during hunting season. His method of sharpening is actually the way most people strop their knives. He'll actually go blade out, so he's pushing away from the edge, and that's how he sharpens his knife. Again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way, as long as you get the right angle on each side of that edge. So our blades are sharpened at a 25-degree angle. Our belt grinders are set to that degree. Some other companies, they have theirs set to 23 or 22. Most kitchen knives will be around 20, maybe even down to 17 or even 15. and sometimes even lower than that. So one of the things you got to do is figure out what angle your blade is. One of the easiest ways to do that is to lay it on its grind and then tip it until you feel the edge hit. And once you feel that edge hit, you know that you've got the right angle. For people that are just going to do it freehand, a lot of times they'll just get started like that, do a few strokes until they get comfortable, and then just go to town. A lot of sharpeners will have a built-in guide. For example, this little handheld one that can be used at home or in the field, it's got a 20-degree guide on either side. So you set your knife on that guide and you're set at 20 degrees. For most people, 20 degrees is a good angle. It's not too steep that you're gonna roll or chip your edge very easily, but it's not so blunt that it's like a pry bar. But again, as long as you do it right, you're gonna be good. As long as you get the right angle, you'll be good. This particular sharpening system came with a little guide as well. It is a 23 degree angle on this one. So this one is probably closer to our actual sharpened edge. So again, same thing. You set your knife up against the flat part of the blade, up against that guide, and you've got your 23-degree angle, and then you're gonna try to keep that angle all the way across. Now, with this knife, we're doing a tanto point. So basically, we're going to do two edges. We've got the main edge and we've got our little secondary edge. There are recurve blades out there. There's blades, hunting blades that'll just have belly all the way. The concept is the same, but for some of those different angles, you've got to kind of change the way you're holding the knife. But for this example, we grabbed something that would be fairly easy. So again, you find your angle, and you do this a few times. What you're going to do is, at some point, you're going to create a burr. So the steel is going to have folded over the edge a little bit. And with a blade that's dull, that's what you want to create. You want to create a burr and then turn it around, either switch hands or come back the other way and create the burr on the other side. And you're going to kind of go back and forth, and every time you switch sides, you're going to do fewer strokes until you get to the point where that burr just kind of falls off, and then you're done. So again, with something dull, I mean, you've used it, there's no edge left at all. You're going to start with a coarse grit. If it's still got a pretty good edge, which this knife does, depending on how good you think it is, you can either start medium or you can start fine. If you start fine and you find that your edge is not starting to feel sharper as you go, then go back, start at medium and just start over. I tend to err on the side of less is more. So if it's me, and I think I'm pretty sharp, I'm going to start on the fine stone, and I'm going to try and get it with just that, so that I don't have to over sharpen my blade. A lot of people, they feel like their knife just has to shave their face or it's not sharp enough. And while it's good to have a very sharp edge, having it that sharp, it's just not going to last very long. It's you cut a few boxes, you cut some wood, and it's no longer shaving sharp. And some people think, oh no, I've got to sharpen that knife again. And it's just not like that. There are varying levels of sharpness, and that's perfectly fine. The thing is when it starts to get dull, it starts to get dangerous because you have to use more force. You can slip and cut yourself. So you got to kind of find that balance between, will it shave my arm hair and will it do the things I need it to do? Most people don't shave their arm hair on a regular basis, so they need it just to be sharp enough to cut boxes or cut wood or cut packages or cut rope or whatever it is. And so, if the first few times you sharpen your knife, you can't get it to cut your hair, but it's doing the other things you need to do, don't get discouraged because you're there. That's all you need.